Good morning, everybody. This is Diggs. It's another beautiful day out here in the Pacific Northwest, and with the Farplane archives coming out, we have access to a lot of gear that's farmable in-game. So in this video, we're going to go over all of the gear from the Farplane's archives that's farmable. We're also going to talk about some of the other gear that's farmable in the game underneath the Farplane, and we're going to talk about which of it's relevant, because there's a lot of it that's not relevant. There's a lot of it where, you have two instances of a weapon, and you don't know which one's good. So this is going to be really good for new players coming to the game. If you don't know what weapon to grind, if you don't know what weapon's going to be good, this will be a good starting place for you. So let's go ahead and dig in. So in no particular order, we are going to just start with the Cypress Pile. Now, the Cypress Pile is one of the weapons that does have two different variants that have been released. The Cypress Pile is a weapon that gives magic resistance penetration 20. The other weapon that is also a rod is going to be the Platinum Staff, which will give, the Platinum Rod, which will give magic attack plus 15. So you can't really go wrong with either of these. A lot of whether you're going to use one rod over the other is going to be dependent on if you want to deal damage, if you're looking for PvP, if you're looking for PvE. A great thing to consider and a kind of great way to think about it, Cypress Pile is going to be more useful in PvP, and Platinum Rod is going to be a little bit more useful in PvE. Now, you can't really go wrong either way, again, building either of these, and as new players, these are going to be great weapons to kind of fill out your arsenal in the beginning of the game. At the top of the list, you're actually going to see Evil Bane Pendant. This piece of gear is very niche, and I honestly can't tell you a time that I've actually used this gear. There's never been a time where I've needed Enhanced Demon Killer. There's never been a time that I've needed Demon Resistance. So while it may look really powerful, not really the most useful piece of gear. The Flame Tongue is, of course, going to be one of the best fire swords, or arguably the best fire sword in the game. If a unit can equip fire and swords, it's likely going to be their best in slot weapon. Particular units that I would think about with this would be like King Mont, right? Lilith, for example. Even Adelard, if you do get the magic version, is going to be probably best in slot for him. There's a whole variety of kind of fire sword units. The thing with Flame Tongue, though, is not a ton of units. Like, you're not going to need this for a unit to be good, usually, because the units that can use this are almost all in fire and all have secondary purposes. So like King Mont is a tank. You can benefit from putting two accessories on him, right? You have Adelard, who's also a mage, who you can put his own TMR on him, right? There's just a variety of things that you can use kind of other things on. So Flame Tongue, if you don't have one, I would farm one up, but it's not a must get right away. Jig Axe, very similar to the Cypress Pile and the Platinum Rod, is another one of those pieces of gear that actually has two different axes, or a sister axe that was also released for farming. So Jig Axe is going to be released. It's going to have very high attack. It is going to have an aim version with 18 accuracy, and it's also being released simultaneously with Golden Axe further down. So the question is, do you farm Jig Axe? Do you farm Golden Axe? I would farm Jig Axe. I think that's going to be the best axe to farm. It is going to give slash resistance penetration 20, very similar to Cypress Pile and Platinum Rod. The difference is whether you want penetration and whether you want magic attack. Universally, I would say penetration, again, is more useful, especially in PvP. And magic or plus slash attack is going to be more useful in PvE. And again, it also comes down to what trust runes you have set. There are so few axe wielding units in the game. You definitely want to look at which axe unit you're using, and even ask the question if Muraga's TMR is maybe a little bit better than this, depending on your situation. And we're also going to get a new MR axe wielder that is free next week. So lots of things to consider here with that. Golden Helm is a little bit obsolete, I would say. It is going to give you some good missile resistance, 8%. The drawback, though, is that on any trust rune, you can get missile resistance plus 7%, and it's not going to come with the potential detriments to evade, and it's going to open up a slot that'll give you more defense and spirit. Golden Helm is just a piece of gear that is a little bit obsolete, and there are other things that are better, and a trust rune basically fully replaces the need for a Golden Helm now. Pious gloves, useful for your energists out there. It's one of those things where, you know, if black gloves isn't out for Garvel, you know, you could farm this for Garvel. Of course, if you have more the merrier. This is going to be really good for her. Just one of those things that, you know, this is here. Most people are not going to need to farm this. This is not going to be a piece of gear that many people are going to farm. Platinum bow. Interestingly, the only bow option for grinding here. Very good in that it has defense penetration 20 on it. A lot of missile-based units actually require more defense penetration than they actually have. So if you are having a bow unit and you're utilizing a bow unit, this is probably going to be the most powerful bow for them, because while they have a lot of buffing abilities, they don't always have a lot of penetration. So if you are just looking to build a bow for your generic bow units, whether you have Satya or something else, Platinum bow is going to be a good way to go. Platinum rod, as we talked about, is going to give magic attack plus 15, magic 162. Platinum rod, if you don't have access to the Final Fantasy X rod, which will be coming out, the Magistral rod, Platinum rod's kind of like my solid, like, I have this, I'm gonna throw it on my unit nowadays. But if you're looking for like solid, just like baseline, this is a staff and I need to equip a staff, that's basically what Platinum rod is. Platinum mace is going to be the best mace. So there is a difference between a platinum mace and a platinum rod. A platinum mace is going to be for calculator characters. So if you have Ildira as a new player, this is going to be the best weapon for her. I would highly recommend getting it to +5. Going to be really good, and it's going to be quite easily farmable. So you will definitely need 1 or 2 versions of these in order to be successful in the game. Razalgethi, while occupying kind of the best gun slot for a long time, has actually faded compared to Lara's pistols, but Lara's pistols are likely not coming back, and Razalgethi is kind of the generic solid gun that you're going to need if you're maybe putting Luartha in your composition as a new player, if you are investing maybe in Lucia or any other gunner character. I use my Razalgethi still to this day. It is one of those things where I have 1 copy of Lara's pistols and then I have 3 copies of Razalgethi, because back in the day, this was the best gun for quite a long time, and it will continue to be the best, you know, alternative option going forward. And I think it is probably still the best general option that people generally have access to. One thing to note about Razalgethi is if you do go the assault version, it is really hard to cap attack on this. You may want to consider going the crit or accuracy version, just so that you can actually cap the stats on this weapon. Sasuke's katana, the only real ninja weapon in the game. You're going to need a copy of this. You're going to need 2 copies of this. I would highly recommend getting at least 2 copies of this, because there's quite often times where you're going to be running ninjas in the party, and you're going to want them to have a weapon. Particularly Shadow Lynx, while she can be run with her own TMR, is going to benefit highly from this weapon. And Shadow Lynx is one of those units that you will be using as a new player, and that you will be utilizing to clear content, because she is so evasive. She's going to be very powerful, and you are going to want a solid weapon to go with her. Saiten, not the best weapon in the game. It is a katana, but even though it's called a katana, it's going to be for the samurai units or for Spellblade mostly, because it is a magic-based weapon. There's 2 units that are going to benefit from this, really. It's going to be for Varouche, and it's going to be for Raychess. And, you know, Varouche, if you pull him as a new unit, most people, I would say, should not invest in him. I think you're going to be better off investing in another unit. Maybe if you use him as a healer, he could be good. But I don't think for new player accounts, wind is really the way to go. And Raychess, you're going to have to, you know, progress your game quite a ways to get access to Raychess. So this weapon, while great, and it's nice that it's readily available, is not the most important weapon to farm right away. Sleep Blade does have some niche uses, but is mostly overshadowed. If you need a Sleep Blade, it might be good just to have 1 leveled up. But nowadays, especially with Lowinger now and kind of other weapons that are swords that are magic based, this sword quickly gets passed up. I mean, even like, you know, Elena's weapon, you know, is going to be easily you know, substituting for this just in terms of raw magic and capability. Smart coat. Again, this is one of those pieces of gear where I'll still use it now and again, but I can't, I mean, actually I haven't used it in a long time, especially with trust runes. Magic resistance is one of the first defensive options because we lack defensive options on our trust runes. Magic resistance and slash resistance are usually like the first things you put on there. So magic resistance plus 8% is not incredible. Spirit plus 21, pretty good. This was a really good piece of gear back in the day. But I would say don't chase this, don't grind this. You know, as a new player, you would be wasting your resources going this route. Tear Fang, a very interesting piece of gear. One of the few neutral swords. The problem with neutral swords is there's very few units in the game that benefit from using a neutral sword, because there's almost always an elemental sword or a unit exclusive sword or an event sword that quickly overshadows this, or a sword that specializes in something more focused than the Tear Fang. And then we also have to compare this to potentially, right, we do have like a defense piercing sword. So there's just so much going on in terms of other weapons that are out there, that while this is a pretty good sword and it gives crit damage 20 for 3 turns, and it gives slash attack 15, you know, in the long run of things, you're probably going to be grinding out another sword to use for your characters, whether that's Sword of Light, whether that's, you know, the fire sword, which we just talked about, Flame Tongue, whether that's Coral Sword, which we will talk about here in a minute. There's just a variety of other weapons that you are most likely going to be using. And even if you do manage, like, even if you're like, yeah, I'm gonna farm this is the way that I'm gonna go, here, I'll even show you guys here. There's just so many swords, right? You know, you have Mythgraven Blade, you have Celeste's sword, Lucio has his sword, Tidus has his sword, Noctis has his sword, right? You have Spine Blade for the defense penetration. It's just, there's just so many swords. This is not going to be a sword that you need to grind out. Coral Sword, everybody should have a Coral Sword. You know, there's not very many units, again, that can utilize this, but the units that can, specifically like Charlotte, we have, of course, Thunder God Sid that can use this. We have Ravis that can use this. All of those units that can use this are going to be great. I do think Lightning gets more use out of its Coral Sword than Fire does out of its Flame Tongue. Universally a good weapon. You should have this, especially with Thunder God Sid coming out in the future. However, I would be remiss if I didn't point out that there is a new Lightning weapon coming out on JP that did come out for Lightning herself, which arguably is better than Coral Sword. So, and it is a sword that can be equipped on multiple units. So Coral Sword may get outclassed actually in the future, which is a little bit surprising. Golden Axe, again, just the same with Jig and Axe. You really got to decide if you want to go for slash attack or slash resistance penetration. In my mind, both are good. I would go for the penetration, but you know, I'm not going to tell you that Golden Axe is a terrible weapon. Healing Mace, I will tell you that there are some players that swear by this weapon. I have never been in a situation where this mace has saved me, but this mace does have access to Curata on it. So any unit that does equip it, you know, is going to be able to basically cast Curata. It's never been a situation where this has saved me. A couple of people will be like, yeah, well, I can take this into tower and use this. I mean, you can also just reset your units every 24 hours. So I don't think you want to level this. I think Platinum Mace, leveling Platinum Mace for your calculators is going to give you a higher magic, and it's going to be a more universal weapon. Silver Rim Spectacles, you want to farm these. These are going to give Spirit penetration by 20. They're also going to give accuracy 26. So very powerful. One of the best farmable pieces of gear in the game for mages. Go farm these. The fact that it gives accuracy when we are in an evasion meta, and the fact that it gives Spirit penetration is like a double whammy. Tourmaline Ring, you can skip this. It is going to give jump 1 for 1 turn and dex 20%. You know, the dex 20% is not the biggest impact that you might think it is, because of course it's going to be based off of base stats, and dex is really only going to focus on, you know, accuracy, crit damage, and even then it's not you know, the highest influencer of some of those, so not the best here. Golden Armor, very similar. Slash resistance 8%, high defense but lowers accuracy and evasion, also agility. This has been outclassed. You should not farm this. There will probably be very little times that you actually use this. Sage's hat is, I would say, still relevant. I'm very, okay. So Sage's hat was one of the best evasion pieces of gear in the game, but it's been outclassed by Santa's clothes and by the black gi that came out more recently. They both have evasion, and one of them has defense penetration on them. However, not every unit can equip those. So there are still cases where Sage's hat is going to be the best evasion piece of gear / armor in the game for a specific unit. So there are cases where it would make sense, especially if you're like a new player building Shadow Links, for example, where Sage's hat could be viable for you, and you may need to get a +5 version of that. Rune Blade / resistance 8% on a sword, probably not. Again, this is one of those situations where, you know, we're at a point where a lot of units have access to different greatsword weapons. Previously, this kind of came out with Oldoa, I believe, and Ruinstern, and it was just like a no-go. It was a no-go then, and it's a no-go now. It does have a really good accuracy version that gives 17 accuracy on it, but most of the time, you know, you're going to be able to farm a better greatsword. You can farm Joom's greatsword relatively quickly and easily, which is going to give wind attack up if you do have Joom and Oldoa as well. And if not, it's still going to give slash attack up for your other units, and that would be a good weapon to farm. Jeweled Ring is going to give paralyzed resistance and evasion rate 8. Hard skip on that. I would grab some of these though. I would grab some NQ versions of these, just because there are times where you need to have paralyzed resistance on your units. Like, grab 5 of these, but don't, you know, you don't have to make them a +5 to max out the paralyzed resistance. You just have to grab a couple of them. And status resistances are always going to be important to have. Wolf Mask, I think there are cases where you would want to grab and craft a Wolf Mask. Now, I have used my Wolf Mask. Wolf Mask is the second highest accuracy item in the game. It gives dexterity, it gives accuracy 15 on the aim version, and it gives an additional 15 accuracy in the box stat. So it does give more accuracy than the spectacles. It gives more accuracy, or it gives, you know, the second highest accuracy compared to Alexandrite Ring. And there are situations where I've used this. Now, is this going to be good for you to farm? If you're trying to be relevant in PvP, as a new player, you may try to get this. But honestly, I think maybe getting those 100% hit abilities and maybe investing in a couple other characters or different builds might be better than spending your time farming this. So hopefully this video has helped you guys, and hopefully, you know, this kind of equipment intro to what's readily farmable in the game right now will kind of guide new players in the right direction. If you guys have any equipment questions, ask them down in the comments below, and I will get back to you, and I will catch you guys next time.